Um, I want to just acknowledge, I'm going to get this out of the way. Get some my way, that does. I want to acknowledge that I've never worn one of these before. It feels quite Britney, really, doesn't it? It's quite, yeah. I'm not doing any dancing, don't worry. I went to see Kunle, who's our sort of production manager. I don't know what his title is. I've only worked here 2 weeks. Give me a break. And he said, you absolutely wore that. It wasn't quite so camp. It wasn't like you wore that. But it was like, you wore it well. And I was like, I don't know how I could wear this any other way. But apparently, I'm wearing it the right way. So thank you, Kunle, for saying that. I'm going to be carrying on this series. And it's my first time preaching to you all. So first of all, thank you so much. I want to just quickly, really, really quickly as well, embarrass some of my friends from a church that I led up in the valleys. Laura and Anthony are here. They made their way down all the way from the valleys, all that way. Thank you much for coming down, guys. Awesome. So I thought, how can I best prepare myself? How can I best relax, spend time in the Lord's presence, just get in a space where I'm ready to preach 3 services. And so my wife went, Sam, do you want to entirely strip the bathroom from top to bottom? So that was my day yesterday. But I've done it with no injuries, bar a couple of cuts. So that's a miracle in itself. So it's a miracle that I'm here. I do have a tendency to do DIY and injure myself doing it. I had 7 stitches across my hand here where I cut myself wallpaper stripping. How do you cut yourself wallpaper stripping? I don't know, but I did it. Just to say, if you chat with me after the service and I sort of look dead behind the eyes, that's because I feel it sometimes. But I want to kick off and really carry on this series looking at the book of Matthew that we've been reading along together. And Sean and Stephen have shared already that Matthew is the tax collector apostle. And he was writing to a Jewish audience. We know that because he very often referenced the Messiah and the idea of this coming Jewish leader who would come and bring salvation and bring the people back to God. And so that was a framework that actually was very pertinent to the Jewish people at the time, but wouldn't have been to other people of other backgrounds. And so we know he was writing to those people. And what Matthew also does is he uses quotes from the Old Testament. Very regularly, he's quoting back to the Old Testament as a way to say to the Jewish people who are reading this gospel, you need to trust what I'm saying because these things have been foretold for years and years and years, and this is the person that I'm telling you he is. And what he's trying to tell them is that Jesus is Lord. That's the title of the whole Matthew gospel that we're preaching. And the idea is that he's doing that by showing the authority that Jesus has. He does that in loads of different ways. He shows that Jesus has authority. And you'll have read it if you've been reading along. He has authority over the waves that Sean spoke about last week, about over nature. He has authority over religious teachings. He has authority over the Sabbath. He has authority over numerous different things. And he's saying that to say he has authority over those things because he is God. He wants to be really clear that he's not just making these things up. He's not just some good guy. He's not some guy with a bit of power. He is God. And that is a really central focus for Matthew. But before I go on, we did this in the 9 a.m. So any of you on band or any of you down here that were here, no shouting out, no cheating. Or Felix, I'm looking at you. There's going to be some pictures come up. Not yet. I'll tell you when. I want you to register what's the very first thing you see. Okay? Is that okay? So when it comes up on screen, I want you to think, right, register what's the first thing is, and we're going to do a vote and see who saw what first. Okay? So if we put the first picture up on the screen, right, what do we see? Okay, who saw a duck? Hands up. Or a bird with a beak? You know a bird has a beak. I didn't have to tell you. And who sees a rabbit or someone said hare. That's very particular. Wonderful. Okay, who saw something else? We'll pray for you if you saw something else. There's nothing else up there, okay? What's the next picture? Okay, what do we see? Well, how old is she? I know you're not meant to ask. It's a young woman, yeah? Does anyone see the old woman? Okay, who doesn't see the old woman? Okay, so you see the lady's chin, like here. That's the old woman's nose, and the old woman's looking down like that. And she's got like a fur coat on and like a shawl. Can you see it? No? Well, I'm moving on. I'm not waiting for you. Wayne had 1 minute. I've only got half hour. Good. Right. And the last one is it's sort of, yes. Can anyone see what's wrong with this photo? Oh, you all saw it so quickly. You're all so eagle-eyed. Maybe it's because it's about 7 foot tall on that screen. So what's wrong with the picture? I don't know why I'm asking. I can't hear any of you. You're just nattering away. As you can see, if you go to the next slide, you go to the next slide for me. It's not her hair. It's a bloke walking behind her. It's a bloke walking behind her. It's not her. She's not got a bun in. Fantastic. What you really, really should be asking me, Sam, what on earth are you showing us these photos for? Thank you. Am I in a panto? What's going on? And so, shush. And so the point of those photos is that the essence of them is that everything doesn't become clear straight away. You have to keep looking. You have to try and look from a different perspective until you see the fullness of the photo. I want to tell you a really quick story. I didn't tell this in the 9 because I forgot, but it's a great opportunity to humiliate Stephen, so I'm going to take it. And we were in IKEA a couple of weeks ago, and we were shopping for someone who needed something, and we got to the till, and they needed some stuff for the kitchen. I think Stephen's laughing because he knows where I'm going with this. And we had some sharp knives. Sharp knives. You've got to be really careful with sharp knives. You shouldn't look after yourself. You've got to look after yourself. I cut my thumb a couple of weeks ago. They're dangerous. And we put them on the till, and the guy behind the till, he looks at me and Stephen, and he says, are you two shopping together? I thought, that's a bit personal, but I said, yeah. And I didn't, so I'm lost. I'm going, why are you asking about my shopping habits? But Stephen, picking up on it, goes, oh, because you'd need ID from him to buy knives. And this guy goes, yeah! He wasn't going to sell me knives. He wasn't going to sell me knives. Why? Because he didn't see the big picture. He didn't get close enough to see the haggard eyes, the grey hair, and it's genuinely, it is coming. And the signs that I have 2 young children. And so because I didn't want to rub it in, I didn't want to make a big deal of it in front of Stephen, I said, thanks, Dad, shall we go? And when we left. So that is verbatim that happened. Yeah. So what happened? That person didn't see the bigger picture. I may never preach again, so I'm going to take my options. But the idea is actually, as we get to this part of the book of Matthew, he is making a point that there is more to see in Jesus than what some people have already seen. We know he has already tried to prove that there is authority in Jesus, that Jesus has the authority over many things. But actually, as we get to chapter 16, which is what I'm preaching on today, he's actually, he looks back over the stories that he's been telling, and he actually also tries to point out that he wants for us to draw out how different people respond to the same message. How different people respond to standing in front of the Messiah, to standing in front of the one who is Lord, because lots of people do it in different ways. In chapter 8, which we're going to reflect on today, a non-Jewish Roman officer recognizes that Jesus is Lord. In chapter 8 as well, the disciples who are in the boat and Jesus calms the storm, they don't understand it. They say, who is this man that the wind and waves obey? And they don't get what the authority is. But then in chapter 14, he walks on water and they go, this must be the Son of God. And so now they've realized it. They're starting to see the full picture. In chapter 8 as well, a Gentile town fears Jesus and sends him away because of his power. He gets rid of a demon out of men. They go into pigs. The pigs run off the hill. Remember that story? And the town come out and they say, we can't deal with you. Go away. We don't want you near us. And then in another story, Jewish religious leaders reject him. In fact, in many other stories, the Jewish leaders reject him because they think either he's doing his power out of the power of Satan, or that he's teaching things that are wrong. When he stands and he talks about the Sabbath, they think he's blaspheming, and they talk about all these things. And yet, in another situation, a leader of a different synagogue, he believes Jesus can heal, and he comes to Jesus for healing. And then even John the Baptist has a moment of uncertainty. Do you remember reading that? Where John the Baptist says, are you the guy? Are you the one we're waiting for? Or is there something else coming? Like, is it you? I think the point that Matthew is trying to collate stories, and remember, this isn't just the story of Jesus. This is the story of Jesus as told by Matthew. He has a purpose for the way he shapes his story. He's trying to show that there are so many different people from all different backgrounds that all respond to Jesus in the same way. And when we get to chapter 16, he sort of brings it to light as to why he's shown them. I believe that's what I get a sense that he's trying to teach us. And in chapter 16, he turns the question from other people, how do other people engage with Jesus, and he flips it to his disciples and, if I may, by the Holy Spirit, us. He's going to ask us today, and quite bluntly, I'm going to ask you today the question that Jesus asks Peter to answer. So we join the story in chapter 16. Jesus has retreated from the public eye. He's been doing a lot of ministry in Jewish towns, and he goes to a place called Caesarea Philippi. It's a more Gentile town, predominantly, and so there's less furore around Jesus. He has more time to spend with his disciples alone, and he gets to teach them and share with them and find out what's been going on. So if you've got your Bibles, we're going to jump into Matthew 16, starting chapter 16, verse 13. So when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" Now, the Son of Man is a term that Jesus mostly calls himself. It's reflected in Daniel 7, and it's a story of, it actually reflects an image of the Messiah who is to come, a description of the Messiah who is to come. Not that people tend to pick up on that so much, but he calls himself the Son of Man. So when he's asking this question, he's saying to his disciples, what are people saying about me? He's not saying that in an insecure way. He's not like, do they like me? He's saying, what are they saying? Do people get it? Do they see the picture? Are they seeing the bunny and the duck? Or are they just, what are they seeing? Are they seeing it all? And so Philip, or the disciples say, some say John the Baptist. Others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. Essentially, the disciples report back to Jesus, the consensus about you is, you're a good guy. Maybe you're a prophet, maybe you're a teacher, maybe you can do some healing, but essentially, you're a good guy. And Jesus asks that question so that he can ask them the question. And Jesus flips it now and he says, so what about you? Who do you say I am? And Peter sees it. In this moment, Peter declares as clearly as has been declared that he sees it. You are the Messiah, the chosen one, the Son of the living God. He's saying, I see it. In your miracles, in your teaching, in the things that you've been showing us, you have authority, not because you're a good guy, not because you can speak loudly, but because you are God, because you are actually the Son of God who came, and you have power to stand above all things. You are not just a good guy, he's saying. You are Jesus. You are the Christ. And what's interesting is Jesus' response. He says, blessed are you, Simon. Side note, if that's confusing you, Simon, Peter was Simon. In this place, Jesus renames him Peter, which means rock. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it. So what's Jesus saying? Well, it's actually this moment when the story shifts. Peter, imagine it, this whole book has been Jesus revealing his authority, but people either getting it or not getting it. Sometimes understanding, sometimes half understanding, sometimes completely missing it. And then we get to this point and Jesus says, I've got it. Peter says, I've got it, that's it. You're the Messiah. And Jesus says, yes, but his point of celebration isn't the fact that Peter got it. Isn't the fact that it was right. It's the fact that Peter got it and it was a truth given to him by Jesus, by the Father. Why? So that no one can boast. You see, the point of this is that Matthew is saying this message of hope, this message of authority, this message that Jesus is God is not for the people who are closest to Jesus. It's not for the people who are educated. It's not for the people who have high social standing. It's not just for the people who look good. This is available for anyone who is willing to hear. How many times does Jesus say, if you have, those who have ears, let them hear? In fact, if you go with me quickly to chapter 11, we see Jesus be really clear about this. Verse 25, at that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. The point that Matthew is trying to say is that this wonderful truth, this truth about God, is available for anyone. If you are sat in here wondering, is Jesus for me? I promise you, it is. This passage is telling me that whatever your background, whatever your language, whatever your history, whatever your understanding, Jesus, who is God, is for you. That message is for you. That's good news. But what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is whether you're saved, whether you're kind of questioning, whether you've been a Christian for 50 years, that question is still for you today. That question did not stop the moment you said yes to Jesus. You don't say, Jesus, your Lord, once, and then it's like, cool, I'm done, I'm out. This is a daily statement, and it is a question that is asked to us on a daily basis. I want to take you back to Romans 5 because this fact is really clearly proven. Romans 5, sorry. It's a Roman in Matthew 8. I'm all over the shop. Essentially, the message of hope is not for those of a particular religious background. It's not for the Jews. It's not for just the Gentiles. It's not for a particular race. It's not a particular societal standing. It's not a particular education. It's not just for the people that sit at the front. It's not just for the people that sit at the back. Hello, I can still see you back there. Oh, someone waved then. Thanks. This is for anyone who is willing to say, God, would you show me? And this story in Matthew 8 really shows this. So jump to it. It's the faith of a centurion. So it says, when Jesus had entered Capernaum, that is a Jewish town, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home, paralyzed, suffering terribly. A bit of background, that the Romans and Jews were at odds with each other. The Jews lived in one space, the Romans at another. Very often the Romans would overpower and oversee the Jews, and they had to listen. Now, thankfully, can I just say that I'm not perfect? Is that all right if I say it? Okay, cool. So I said something in the earlier service, and Pastor Stephen came up to me in between and just said, by the way, just check it in Luke. It actually describes something slightly different. So I just want to say that I just want to change what I said from the 9 slightly. All right? Because I'm not perfect. And that is why iron sharpens iron. Just wanted to point that out. Okay. So, am I well, you said it. You don't have to clap. Everyone else can clap, not you. That's not fair. So, what I said in the first service is that all Romans hated the Jews, and generally that is the truth. But what Luke shows us is that actually this man, this centurion, stood in high level and high class within the Jews. The Jews respected him. And so actually they say, when in the story in Luke, they come to it and they actually say to Jesus, please heal this man's, because we respect him. We love him. But essentially what the case is still the fact. That the centurion, Jesus says, well, shall I come and heal this person? I've got the power. Do you want me to come and heal your servant? And the centurion says this, and it's amazing. Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. Notice this. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one go and he goes. I tell that one come and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. Why does Jesus go so big about this? Why does Jesus say this? I think it's because this Roman soldier, who essentially could exercise authority over Jesus as a Jew. He had societal standing above Jesus. He had the right to overpower him and to say, you follow me. What he does is he humbles himself before Jesus. And he doesn't make it about power. He says, I know you've got the power, but what I see in you is authority. And the question is, what is it over? Well, let's just really break it down to bare bones. He needs healing for his servant. And he says to Jesus, I don't need your power, I need your authority. What's he saying? You have authority. I see that you have authority over sickness. That is not a human claim. He's not saying you're a really good teacher, so I think you have authority over sickness. He's saying there's something that people don't see about you, but I see it. You have authority. Why? Not because you're a good man, not because you've got nice morals, because you are God. I see that you are God. And so Jesus, it's unsurprising then when you see it as this, that Jesus goes, I have not seen faith like this in all Israel. For someone to say, it's not because of who I am, it's not because of my background, it's not because of the position I hold, it's because I'm willing to see that you are something. There is something more to you than is obvious to others. And so I want to declare that you are God. He is not making a claim about Jesus' power, he is making a claim about Jesus' nature. You are God. And so we look now again at these two passages and their two main focuses. So first of all, we know it's to prove that Jesus is God, the Messiah. That's fairly obvious. But I think we have to be really careful to stop there. To not stop there. This story is not just about proving the fact that Jesus is the Messiah. The whole essence of it is to say, and what are you going to do about it? Jesus is saying, if I am Lord, if I am God, what are you going to do about it? That centurion kneeled. He saw something and he trusted me. And so my question to you is, who do you say that he is? And what are you going to do about it? Now, you might be a non-Christian in the room. You might have stumbled in. I don't know your background. Maybe you just thought, oh, that looks like a nice place. I might wander in there. I wonder if they've got some free coffee I can have. We do, don't we? Yeah. Thank you. See, I'm new here. And maybe you're coming in and you're like, I guess that I've got to think about this. I've got to think about this question, because if you are God, it changes something for me. But can I say that actually, if you're a Christian here, if you're a believer, if City Church is your home, it can be so easy to believe in God, declare him as Lord, and do nothing about it. It's so easy to live in our own strength. It's so easy to need our own finances or power or status or health to say, that's what gives me safety. That's what makes me feel secure. But this call is to say, actually, not God, you need to be my Lord in everything. We've talked a lot about finances recently. I'm not going to batter on about it. But he needs to be Lord over our finances. He needs to be Lord over our relationships. He needs to be Lord over our families. He needs to be Lord over our workplaces. He needs to be Lord. And that, as I've said, is a daily choice. So I said this in the first service, I'm going to say it now. God isn't impressed if you've been to church for every Sunday for the last 50 years. If you come in to sit down, receive, and go, he's not impressed. It is not some magical tick sheet that we get to say, hey, Jesus, I came this week. It's wonderful. Coming and being part of a body is wonderful. The Bible tells us, don't ignore meeting together. Don't deny that. It's important. But if you are coming so that in your head you can say, I went to church, it is close to meaningless. If you are not going to come and say, God, I am coming to be a part of the body, to serve, for you to be Lord over everything, for you to be Lord over the things that are difficult to give to you, my finances, my friendships, my relationships, but also Lord over the things I want to give to you, my sin, my brokenness, my mistakes. God, I come to give you everything. We prayed to release Bizra, who has been amazing. I mean, I've known her for 2 weeks, but she's been amazing. So can I be honest? We're going to need some strengthening in our kids and youth teams. Is Jesus Lord over our service? Is coming here so that you can drop the kids off, or that you can just come and sit and you can receive and you can go? Or are you coming here to say, Jesus, you're Lord over my life? It might be uncomfortable for me to serve on a team. It might be uncomfortable to come early. It might be uncomfortable to do things. But if you're Lord of my life, it means something practically for me right now. I believe that's it. We are called to say, God, what does it look like for you to be Lord of my life? For me to drop my status like the centurion? For me to lower myself and go, God, I see it. And it means something. It has to mean something for me. I want to read a quote which is as challenging a quote as I've ever heard, but it's from C.S. Lewis, so that makes sense. And the reality is that every single one of us has that question to answer. and what society does. In fact, if you remember in this passage, Peter says, oh, well, lots of people think you're a prophet or you're this or you're that. Our society does the same thing to Jesus. We just explain him away. Oh, he's a good guy. Oh, he's outdated. He's a bigot. Oh, he's this over there. Oh, okay, there's proof that he was real. Fine, but he wasn't. People just lied and they made up stories. Society will just explain away what it is unwilling to accept. And this quote from C.S. Lewis addresses this because every single person, whether you are a Christian and you're interested, or you're a Christian and you're not interested, or you're a Christian for 50 years, every single one of us has to answer that question today. So if we could put that first slide up. I am trying here, this is C.S. Lewis, I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him being Jesus. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who said he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. Next slide. You must make your choice. Let me say this was written years ago, but this statement is for you today. You must make your choice. Either this man, Jesus, was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us, and he did not intend to. He has not given us the choice to say Jesus was a nice guy. He has not given us the choice to say, I'm a Christian, but I do nothing about it. The only choice is either he is a demon from hell, or he is the Son of God, and I need to give my life and bow my life before him. And that is what Matthew is doing here. He's shaping up this tension to point this question back at us. And that can feel scary, but can I tell you, there is so much freedom in bowing the knee to Jesus and saying, God, I give you my life. There is so much freedom in confessing sin with a friend. There is so much freedom in tithing your first fruits. There is freedom in serving on a team. There is so much freedom in saying, God, I'm not good enough, but you're worthy and I trust you. There is freedom in declaring that he is Lord. So, to bring this to a close, 2 questions. If you can put the slide up. Who do you say he is? And what are you going to do about it? Today, maybe you're a non-Christian, you've come in and you're either questioning or you're wondering or a friend's dragged you along. You have to answer that question. You have to leave this place today saying, either he's one or the other. If you're here today and you're saying, Sam, it feels like you've been talking to me. It feels like your words have just been speaking to me, like God just wants to speak to me, and I think he does. Maybe today is the day for you to say, be my Lord. I bow the knee. And just to prep you, if you do that today, you'll have to do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. But maybe you're a Christian. Maybe you've come in here. Maybe you've been a part of this church for years. And today, maybe God is pushing on your heart and just saying, is he actually my Lord? Like, do I trust that he's God? Have I found my security and my safety in my finances and my friendships and my relationships and my, whatever that might be, my job, my car? Do I actually trust him as Lord and God? Maybe after today, you need to come and have a chat with someone and say, I want to be more involved, or I want to give, or can you chat to me, or can you just pray with me about something I've been dealing with? Or there is freedom. But today is the day to make a choice. What are you going to do about it? So we're going to put a prayer up that we say at the end of every service. And it's essentially a prayer that answers that question by saying, okay, I believe you, God. You're Lord. Jesus, you are Lord. You came. You died on a cross to take away my sin. You rose again to confirm in me my eternity. And you empower me now by your Holy Spirit to live a life, living the upside down kingdom, serving, loving, being faithful, giving the best of myself, being part of your body, the church. And so if we're going to pray this, we're all going to pray this together. And if you're going to say this for the first time, I just want you to acknowledge you that that's brilliant. And afterwards, I am going to be asking you to raise your hands so that we know who you were. And so that we can come and chat to you and make sure that you start this journey of faith with a family, with friends, with people that can walk this with you. So let's read it together. Jesus, I acknowledge that I have done wrong things and that my sin has separated me from you. But I believe you died for my sins and rose from the dead. Today I ask for your forgiveness and thank you for your gift of new life. I receive you as my Lord and Savior. I choose relationship with you, and I choose to live for you. Please come into my heart and change my life now and forevermore. Amen.